Welcome to the Sharing the Faith podcast, where every other week we explore the beauty and power of faith in Jesus Christ, the light of the world. Now here is your host, Dr. Tom Neal.
This is Dr. Tom Neal here with you today with another episode of Sharing the Faith, and I am so happy today. My favorite thing on this podcast is to have people that I get to talk with, and I get to share with you all these amazing people I've met over the years. And today I have yet another person. Her name is Karen Baker. Karen is right now patching in via the internet and her phone from Mandeville, Louisiana. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a moment, but Karen and I have known each other since 2012 when I first spoke to her on the phone back in the early days of my time at Notre Dame Seminary. And Karen lives with her husband in Covington, Louisiana. Covington, by the way, is home to the famous St. Joseph's Abbey, a Benedictine abbey up there, where there is a seminary college where actually our Diocese of Pensacola-Tallahassee sends some of our men who have to go complete their college degree and go into seminary formation. So Karen lives in the same town. And I think, Karen, weren't you there when that monastery was founded?
No, I founded like 100 years ago.
I'm so sorry. I thought you had said that you were. Okay.
No.
Oh, come on. Well, Karen, you can tell me more about what life in Covington is like. Covington also is home to another very old Catholic institution, the Covington Carmel, which is a Carmelite monastery, convent of women, cloistered women. And one of the women there, her name is Sister Grace, used to be a student at the Catholic Student Union at Florida State University when I was there in the 1990s and entered religious life there. So we have a connection of this diocese there. Karen, right now in Mandeville, is at Mary Queen of Peace in her office, where she is the Director of Parish Operations and Stewardship. Is that right, Karen?
Yes, that's correct.
Yes. And she'll tell you more about that in a moment. But Karen and I have known each other since 2012. We've become dear friends over the years. And I have the highest regard for Karen. She is a sweet, humble, strong, intelligent, and competent person that the church is blessed to have where she is. She would tell you all those things I just said are exaggerations, but I know they're not. And Karen, the reason I have her on today, just because besides the fact I want everyone to get to know Karen, is that Karen wrote a book that was published in 2022 by our Sunday Visitor. And the name of that book, Karen, would you hold it up while I name the book?
Yes, my book.
So it's called Faith, Hope, and a Sense of Humor, How to Survive and Thrive on the Front Lines of Parish Life. And Karen will tell us a lot more about that as we get into the show. But that book, I think, is just a gem. And not only for people who work in the church, but for anyone who works anywhere and wants to think about how, as a Christian, they can live their Christian life in a way that is not just, as she says, surviving, but thriving. So, Karen, the long introduction there to you. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Well, thank you for having me. Always delightful. I can't believe it's been 12 years since we first met. Time flies.
It's been, I'd say time flies.
Yeah,
It's truly incredible. Karen actually came over here and visited several months ago, just to came by and visited the area, and I got a chance to connect with her over lunch. Yeah. So this is our second time in a while seeing each other. So what I'd like to do at first, Karen, I'd just like to let you introduce yourself to the people, tell a little bit specifically, about your life, but what led you to work in the church in the way you do, kind of maybe a little of your vocation story there.
Sure. Well, as God can play jokes on us, it all started in a very strange way. But I worked, I graduated from Loyola, New Orleans with a degree in communications, and I worked for the Times-Picayune newspaper in New Orleans for about 7 or 8 years. I moved to Orlando, worked for a newspaper there, came back home when I had a baby, and I worked for the newspaper till 2012. 2012 was a big year. So I got laid off from the Times-Picayune in June of 2012. And at the time, I was actually on the Sea of Galilee. It's my favorite story. I was on a pilgrimage with my dear friend, Sister Marina Aranzabal, who, speaking of at Covington, the Teresians also have a place, the Teresian sisters in Covington. So we have a very holy triangle there. But so I was with Sister Marina, with Father Ronnie, my pastor at the time, Father Ronnie Calkins. And that's when I got the call that I was being laid off from my long time job as a journalist. So that was quite, I mean, we knew it was coming. They told us that on that day, which was the day before my birthday, they were going to lay off probably 200 people as they made their transition to digital media. So it was just such a blessing to be with this group of people on a pilgrimage when I found out I would be losing my job. It was just kind of surreal. There I was looking out at the Sea of Galilee going, well, I guess you have a plan, God. Because and the strange thing is, in May of 2012, I graduated from Loyola with a master's degree in pastoral studies through the ministry program there. And I just was starting to apply to the seminary program that when I met Dr. Neal. So I was in between these programs of formation without a job. And I thought, well, I wonder what I'm supposed to do. And so I just tried to, listen to God's call there. I did a few different things. And eventually, so that was 2012, I eventually ended up working full-time here at Mary Queen of Peace 9 years ago. Our pastor, Father John Tran, at the time, hired me full-time. He's now an auxiliary bishop of Atlanta, so hopefully he sure knows what he's doing.
Sure
I'm very grateful that I landed here, but then I've been here 9 years, but it's been my parish home for, it's kind of scary, probably 30 years, because my children they went to school here, they grew up here, so this is really our home, it became such a blessing to be here in ministry. When my children were here, it was such a part of my life. And now it's not just a job, of course, in ministry. This is my ministry. It's my service to the church, to the Lord here at Mary Queen of Peace. I'm just grateful to be here. And that's how it all led me here from. But, even before I was laid off, I just had this heart for parish life, because that's when I was on the pastoral council at Mary Queen of Peace when I still worked at the newspaper, and I was involved with strategic planning and surveys and pastoral work and all kinds of things that I really enjoyed. I really loved digging into what is a parish. I became really involved with that and intrigued by it. And really my whole faith was reawakened here when my children were little. It's a beautiful parish family. So it's just the way that God drew me just from, actually, I remember when I first came here when my children were little, and I registered them for the Catholic school, and my husband is not Catholic, and he had some questions about that. I said, well, don't worry. They're going to go to school, but I'm not going to be like at church all the time. But then I'm at church all the time. So you never know. God laughs at my plans. So yeah, it just was a kind of convoluted route to get here, but I feel like I'm where the Lord wants me to be and where I find joy in being here. And that's how I ended up, writing this book, because every day something happens. I'm like, we should write a book about this.
It's perfect you say that, because at the beginning of your book, you segue right into that question, why do I write this book, at the beginning? And you give three answers, as I remember, right? Three answers as to why you wrote that book. So what was kind of in you that made you think this is really a story I want to share, a perspective I want to share? Why did you do that?
Well, I think, for one thing, being on this side, because I had been a parishioner, and then being on the inside where they say what the sausage is made, you just see things from a different perspective. And I think in my mind, I thought, well, if I work for the church, it'll be so much easier to grow in holiness because I'm here all the time. But actually, it can be quite a challenge, because so many things are coming at you, so many people to deal with, and you have a lot of really work to do in ministry. And so it's, even though the church is right next door, it's sometimes a challenge to keep that in perspective. I think in my work life previously, I would come to the church. It would be a place of relaxation, refreshment. It was much easier with those boundaries. And now it's all together. So how do you navigate that? And how do you keep growing in virtue and holiness when it's your job too? So I think I saw that and thought, what can I do to help others in this situation see that and maintain that balance and see how to still grow in holiness in the midst of all the craziness, because crazy things do happen. I mean, the toilet overflows in the middle of Mass, or, the lights all start flickering the other night. Every day could be a new chapter. So how do we continue to grow in virtue in the midst of the many things coming at us? And I didn't really see that many books. I didn't see any books that really addressed that in particular. There are a lot of books on parish ministry, but in the trenches, so to speak, how do you deal with it? How do you see, I need this virtue, I need to pray with this to help me through it? And so that's where that was born, really. For myself, and seeing that this hopefully can help others who also minister in parishes, because it can be daunting, and you don't want it to be just a job. It is a ministry and it's service, but you also need to recognize that you still need to grow in that holiness and through the difficulties.
Yeah. And I want to say, first of all, my own reading of the book, and then you and I did a workshop, I don't know, a couple of years ago now. I can't remember when it was.
It was a year ago.
Was it a year ago? A year ago. Okay, my goodness. That's amazing. It was a year ago. And it was for people who worked in parish staffs. And I think one of the things that was clear from that day is how much these people appreciated the in the trenches perspective that you have. You know, you're not speaking about theory. You're not speaking about theology per se. You're speaking about day-to-day experience. Like, for example, there's a phone ringing right now in your office, which is so perfect. Yes, you can answer it. If you need to answer it, you're welcome to answer it.
I'm just turning it down.
Seriously, that was perfect.
Might be the Pope or something.
Exactly, literally, as I said, you're in the trenches, your phone rings. So I think that's what people appreciated about it, is it speaks from the ground up in that sense, and speaks into their lives. But back to that, where the sausage is made image of working in the church. So you're at the heart of the church. You work closely with the clergy, right? With the pastor, parochial vicar, deacons, whoever else.
Sure.
You're working side by side with professional staff who work in the parish, as well as volunteers, as well as parishioners. And as you mentioned, and we'll get into this obviously in the book as to how you address it by looking through the virtues at a way of addressing, of responding to this. But that tension, and anyone listening to this who works in the church or, volunteers in a significant way in the church will understand the tension between working in public ministry or ministry where you're, part of the kind of public work of the church, and your own private faith life, especially if you come to the church with a very ideal sense, right, of the church and her ministers. And, this is a place where I'll easily grow in holiness because obviously everyone is on the same page and everyone's striving for holiness. So that tension that comes out when you were working in the church, was it something you had to work through first? Like, gosh, I didn't expect this to happen, and then I kind of worked through it? Or how would you describe the journey you went through up to the book, to writing the book?
Sure. I think a little bit was a surprise of how much. I mean, I knew some things about. I wasn't surprised by some of the job, just having to do some of the organizational things. Because some of it I had done before, maintaining a calendar, doing lots of things, but just the day-to-day intensity of things are always happening. And I read somewhere, ministries and the interruptions. Well, the day is a constant stream of that, really, and you have to be ready for it. And I think that surprised me a bit, and my need to find a way to deal with that. How do I deal with knowing that those interruptions are ministry, and I can't schedule the day knowing exactly what's going to happen. Like, I always have a list, but that you have to almost do like a triage. Like, if someone walks in, that's important, and you have to deal with that situation right there, and then figure out what has to be done that day, and then keep your list going. It's never going to go away. And to be comfortable, I think I always say that I'm comfortable with a little bit of disorder, not a lot of disorder, or just, the incompleteness, because it's never going to be finished. I mean, it's never finished. Eventually the bulletin is finished and it goes off, but the work, there's always something to do, and that's fine. And just to be comfortable with that, to find peace with that, I think is something I had to learn, to say that it's okay that my checklist isn't all checked off when I leave at the end of the day. I need to come to a point where it's okay to leave some things undone for a little while.
Sure. And parishes are particularly like that in my experience when I worked in a parish. And now that I'm working in a diocese, it's not unlike that at all, just a different kind of thing. So one other question I have before we get into the book in a moment is about so you work for the Times-Picayune for how many years altogether?
19 total. 19.
So thinking about the culture, the work culture in the Times and the work culture in the parish, what does the Catholic difference look like? I mean, in other words, the faith difference, where does that, besides the obvious thing that you're dealing with faith explicitly and serving the church explicitly, what would you describe as the differences or similarities, of course?
Yeah, well, I think, of course, it depends on the office. In the office I worked for the Times-Picayune, we were actually in like a suburban bureau of the office, so it was a much smaller group. It was probably it was a very good community actually, and though we didn't pray in the office, but it was it was a very Catholic office. So there was, in that instance, there wasn't any kind of problems even sharing faith or talking about church world or that sort of thing. I think I was very blessed in that sense, and like I said, in some ways it was easier to come to church and feel. When I came to Mary Queen of Peace, I was really at peace because I wasn't bringing my work here, but now my work and my faith intersect, I guess. And so even in the office, I think it's just a little different. It's not really any worse or better. I think people are very passionate about ministry, and so trying to navigate so we know where each other are or one another are, that we can deal with each other and find a way with respect. And because at the Times-Picayune, it was just a lot less personal, I guess. So it was easier sometimes to navigate because you could, write your headlines and lay out your pages and go home and it's fine. It's all done. But this is more personal. I think you're working for the church. You bring more feelings into it, certainly, and everyone does. And so how you navigate that and find ways to work together.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think this book has a lot of bridging, in terms of it being able to speak to people in any workplace, right? Because you deal with real situations in any workplace of different sorts, depending on, as you said, the context and the kind of work you do and the people you work with. Like, Southeast Louisiana is an unusual cultural space because it's such a large Catholic percentage population. Whereas other parts of the country that may not be the case or often may not be the case. Right. So that is a unique situation. So let's get into the book. I want to talk about the book, and I want to talk about the virtues. I really love, that's my favorite part of the book, is the way that you bring the virtues alive. So tell me why you chose the lens of the virtues to think through for people who work in the church, how to survive and thrive.
Yeah. Well, I think because Dr. Neal told me all about the virtues in class, but really, I used to say I was going to write a book about how to dress for spiritual success. And originally, my title of this book was A Closet Full of Virtue, because we need to dress in the virtues. We need to put on Christ, and we need to dress in patience and love and humility and all of that. So the idea of dressing in the virtues really appealed to me and really spoke to me. So I think to write my stories and my little snippets of parish life through that lens made sense to me. And really, that's how you have to survive and thrive. Look at those stories, because otherwise you might lose your mind. Because if the air conditioning's breaking and the toilet's overflowing and the lights are flickering and all those things, and people are upset about this or that, if you aren't growing in virtue, it would be a very hard thing to handle. So that lens is really important. And prayer, of course, is really important to work in parish life, because you have all kinds of things cross your path every day. And also the fact that everything we do in a parish is ministry, whether you're answering the phones or keeping the books or teaching religion, it's ministry, it's service to the kingdom. So we all need to, and I think that was part of it too, in my mind, is everything we do needs to be looked at through virtue, because we have to be Christ to others who come here, no matter what we're doing. So,
well, in the beginning of your book, you define virtue right away, which is always wonderful. Before you use a term, define it, and you do it right away. Use the catechism, which says it's, I think you quoted it as saying, it's an habitual and firm disposition toward the good, or to do the good.
Right.
So this is all about how can I do good or bring about good in my work every day, or become a better person in the process. And then you also quote where it says it means to be like God. And you said that's quite a tall order.
That's a tall order, yes.
Oh my goodness, we're mere mortals.
Yes, but that's why I like the idea of dressing. Like I love in Colossians, like put on then as God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, heartfelt compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. So we put that on, and not forget to get dressed in the mornings for the day and wear all those things. I just like that image of actually wearing it. And there was one of the mystics I was reading a long time ago about, is it Mechtilde of, what's her name?
Magdeburg.
the one that had something about weaving a garment of the virtues. And I just love that image. Like you to dress for Christ, you weave a garment of all the virtues, and it's just beautiful. So,
That is
so that's kind of where I started thinking of this whole idea of dressing in the virtues, or having my garment of virtues. So,
And so
yeah, we need to.
And
Yeah.
so the book is a wardrobe. It's about your wardrobe.
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah.
I maybe you said that before. I didn't remember that. That's really beautiful. And I didn't remember the original title, which I love as well.
Yeah, that was my title, was A Closet Full of Virtue. I think that the on our Sunday Visitor date, and which was fine. I liked the new title, but I think it almost sounded like it appealed just to women when you talk about dressing, because men don't really care what they wear that much or go in the closet. So I think that was one reason they changed the title, which is fine. But that was my thought process, was how do I dress today in the virtues I need?
Well, I'm going to just list the virtues that you include in the book, and then I'm going to ask you just to choose a few of them and unpack them a little bit. Like how do you bring these to life, just so people can get a taste of it? And then at the end, I want to talk about how parish staffs can make use of this book, and then really people outside of that can make use of it as well, but parish staffs. So the virtues she has in there are faith, humility, love, fortitude. My favorite, eutrapelia, often spoken of. You'll find out when she does it, hopefully. Gentleness, hospitality, gratitude, prudence, sense of humor, self-worth, hope, and surrender. So lovely. So why don't you just choose a few of those and unpack them, Karen?
Sure. Well, first I want to say that one of my favorite things about my book are the chapter titles, because I wrote headlines for 20 years. So I think my titles are the best thing about the book.
They really are.
The book.
I agree.
Actually, on the when we had our talk last year with our diocese, someone from one of the parishes said, 4 feet short with 5 minutes to go. I just love that title. So, yes, that was about washing of the feet. But so what I meant by that, okay, I'll talk to you about prudence, because that chapter's about.
And what is it? 4 feet short?
With 5 minutes to go. Like, as if you're playing. Yeah, like you're playing football. But in actuality, I was talking about on Holy Thursday one year when we had everybody lined up. I had all the names set for our washing of the feet, but then right 5 minutes before Mass, maybe 10, Father John pulls me aside in a narthex and he said, Karen, you need to get me 2 more people. 2 didn't show up. So I needed to find 4 feet. Or really just 2 feet, but I had to find. So I was 4 feet short. So I had to go around the church. And that's why I talk about prudence, because the virtue of prudence helps you to decide well and wisely. And so I had to look around, who can I go ask at the last minute? Like, can we wash your feet? So it was just an exercise of trying to think about very quickly, who are these people? It's a good thing I knew a lot of them. And then who can I choose, and choose wisely? So that was just a simple little example of, putting the virtue of prudence to work. Yes. But we actually have to do that a lot in parish life, of course. And even like I said, when in choosing between what I need to do right this minute or in 10 minutes or finish today, I have to use prudence, and what needs to be done today, who needs to be taken care of first. So that was that was just a little chapter. But one of my favorites is eutrapelia, because I'd never heard of it before. And I wanted to write about the need to relax, and sometimes my inability to relax very well. Because when my former pastor was here, Father John used to say, I'd be leaving, he'd say, have a good weekend, try to relax. I'm like, okay, I'll try. But I'm not very good at it. So I had to Google, was there a virtue of relaxation? I had no idea, but there is eutrapelia. I had never heard of it. But I found out a lot about eutrapelia and the need to, as I was going to read, St. Thomas Aquinas actually talked about, consequently, the remedy for weariness of soul must consist in the application of some pleasure. Man's mind would break if its tension were never relaxed. Such like words or deeds wherein nothing further is sought than the soul's delight are called playful or humorous. Hence, it is necessary at times to make use of them in order to give rest, as it were, to the soul. I just love that, because, we think, we're just wasting time. And I remember hearing you talk once about, we say we waste time, but we need to do that, and we need to just relax and have some eutrapelia, because if we're intense all the time, it'll wear out your soul and your body and your mind. So, but I love that that idea. And then the whole thing
And let
about
me just say, by the way, that the playfulness aspect of it
yeah,
in the workplace is, as you know, you and I certainly in the community we had at the seminary, there was a lot of that kind of, animated our friendships, was playfulness. And it's really to me, it's what makes hard work or even stress just so much easier to deal with when you can have a place that you can just
yeah,
laugh about things, be playful, tease people without worrying of offending them and so on. Yeah.
yeah. Yes, you do need to be playful. So I was looking at, yes, just enjoying little things like, although I remember when I had a friend of mine read this before it was published, and she said, Terry Durbus, my good friend Terry, she said, something about get up and take a walk outside. Like if you have so much to do and you just need it, just get up and take a walk outside. And she said, I'm from the north, like Wisconsin or something, and it gets really cold. You can't always get up and take a walk. Oh, okay. I didn't think about that. Around here, almost all the time, you could just walk outside. So I changed a few things, but we have to juggle a lot. And in the midst of all the juggling, sometimes you just have to put it down and take a breath, have a cup of tea, just put on some music, even for a few minutes, or walk to the church. And I sometimes, I don't forget, but it's like, I can just walk over to the church and sit there for 10 minutes. And what a difference that can make in the stress level of your life in ministry. Yeah. So it's beautiful to be right there and to be in that presence. But we do have to relax. And then, because God rested, and that's what I said, even God rested. So he's trying to tell us, just take a breath and just look at everything that is good and be grateful that we have so much goodness in our lives. So, and Jesus rested. He tried to go off by himself, and they found him, but the idea of just, resting a while. I think that's a beautiful thing. And, I just remember Father John, he always wanted me to relax. I'm okay.
And I think when you do that, and we've talked about this, when you do that, it makes your ability to think creatively or, more prudently and rationally a lot easier than when you're stressed and when you're just never stopping, which can happen so easily.
It can. Actually, can I read my favorite paragraph in the whole book was about about not relaxing. So can I read you my favorite paragraph?
Please. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So you arrive at 8 a.m. and are told the air conditioner in meeting room 2 isn't working. You start to text the maintenance man about the AC when someone else walks in to tell you the table setup is wrong in meeting room 11 and ask why that can't be fixed. So you're taking care of that issue when the phone rings and a funeral home wants to arrange a funeral for someone on Wednesday, but you have to make sure the school program is over in time for a funeral in church. And then someone arrives wanting to schedule 5 masses for 4 people with specific date requests and wants to take the cards home. So no, you cannot do it later. Plus, you suddenly realize, to your great dismay, that it's time to upload the bulletin, but the internet is down. And wait, where's the money bag from 6 p.m. Mass? So that's all. And that's when I said that's a little bit of an exaggeration. But that's when I said that at our workshop last year. I said that's an exaggeration. Everybody said, no, it's not.
No, it's not at all, actually. No.
Well, a little bit, but all those things can happen. Maybe not all at once. Mm-hmm. But and just the other day, was it Saturday? We had a women's retreat on campus, and somebody wanted to show a presentation in the church with our projector. So I came like at noon and I showed this lady how to do it. She was all set. It was all ready. Everything was going to be fine. And then I got a text from her at 5:30 Saturday evening saying, the internet's down. So nothing's working. I went, okay. So I said, I'll come over. Not that I'm not at IT, but I texted IT and we pushed buttons and things and nothing worked. Then someone came and set up a hotspot. So it all got done. But the point is, when you think it's all set, it's not really all set. But on Sunday, I had to make myself relax because I spent all Saturday trying to fix stuff. So.
And did you do it? Did you relax?
I did. I relaxed. I took a walk on the lakefront, and I did. I had a nice, relaxing morning. So, but actually, but the other side of it is things like that actually give me joy, like coming and trying to fix that, trying to make sure they were set because it's a beautiful retreat and I wanted it to go well. And that's when you know that it is where I should be. If I were cranky about that, I can't believe they're calling me and this is but I didn't. I actually got some kind of strange joy out of it. Maybe I'm a little weird. but that's when you know you're doing what God wants you to do, though, that
Mm-hmm.
if you find some joy in it. So God made it work. So,
Which you consistently, by the way, anyone who knows you, Karen, knows that you exude that joy. I mean, I know you go through stressful times and it's not always easy and you struggle like all the rest of us, but you exude joy. And as much as you can reflect on that, what is it you think that helps to nurture that in you, that you have that? I mean, there's a naturalness maybe to it, but there's more to me.
well, I think just knowing that I'm grateful that God has led me here, and I don't think I, ever thought I would be doing this, but then I think you feel the joy because you feel at peace of where you are at this moment. And yeah, it can be stressful, but I never have felt myself thinking I just, I don't want to do this. I mean, there's days you get tired, but I think it comes from just being grateful to God for allowing me to serve here and giving me this, I have this great formation that I can put to use, and it didn't just go, it was not for nothing. And I think I'm thankful that I followed God's voice in wanting to do all that. Because even when I started classes at Loyola back in 2008, I kept telling a friend of mine, but I have to drive across the lake. I don't think I can do that. He said, no, you can. I said, I can? Oh, yeah, you can. So I had a lot of support along the way. And just, so yeah, I hope that I'm joyful. And I think when you stop feeling that joy, maybe it's time to do something else. But
Sure.
for now,
Sure.
I still have that source. So thank you.
Well, I don't know if you have other virtues you wanted to cover yourself, but you mentioned gratitude, which is one of your virtues to practice in ministry. So, what would be some examples, or maybe even your book example of gratitude?
Of gratitude,
Mm-hmm.
you said. What did I talk about gratitude? Let's see. Oh yeah, I gotta look it up. It's such a tiny book. My sister just told me today. She said, I don't read. I'm never reading your book. I said, okay. I said, it's not very long, Ellen. It's just a tiny little thing. Oh, chapter 8. Oh, gratitude. Yes. I had a couple of chapters. Of course, I wrote this mostly during the time of COVID. So I had to be careful of not writing it all about COVID, but that could have been a whole book, of course.
Sure, it could have.
But it did teach us a lot. It taught us, and that's where I talk about gratitude in chapter 8, that you don't know what you have until it's gone. So suddenly we didn't have people here. We had an empty church. And when we started being able to gather again, it's just to have that gratitude that, yes, this is, even though, of course, we did our best to live stream, we had outdoor masses eventually, which was beautiful. But there's nothing like us all being together. Now I look around the church we have 600 people at a mass, and it's such a community. And to me, community is such an important part of the way I see the church, is that gathering. And we have a beautiful, beautiful community here. Yes, so many people and differences, and united though in our differences. And the liturgy brings us together. And it's hard to do that when there's no people. So I think I don't think it was this chapter about gratitude. Yeah, yes, this is the chapter where I talk about when we had the empty church and we were live streaming, one day, Father John was by himself and he wanted me to go be the congregation all by myself. So I wore a mic to do the responses, but I didn't bring a cheat sheet. I've been going to mass for a long time, but I just forgot one of my line. It's like, wait, what do I say here? I don't remember.
And you forgot the response.
Yes. Was it? May the Lord accept the sacrifice at your hands. I didn't. I just blew it. I didn't know what to say. But that's where I think about being grateful, is that not that I had a cheat sheet next time, but just it's about the community responding. It's not just about me. And that's why it didn't work, because I'm used to having a few hundred people around me and we all respond together. And that's the beauty of it, but not individually. So I think that taught me gratitude.
It did teach you a sense of humor too, by the way.
Oh yeah.
You could laugh about it. Now, you couldn't laugh about it in the moment, like most of us can't laugh about humiliating moments in the moment.
No. I can only laugh later, but you also, it's like surrendering, because you think you have so much control over things, but we really don't. We don't. I
No,
didn't
we
have
don't.
control over the
That's
we didn't have
very
control over the internet Saturday, and we depend on that so much. But it goes away, and you're like, what are we going to do?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Well, we have about 10 minutes left, Karen, and I'd like to two things I'd like to discuss. Number one, before we get into talking about how this might be used in a small group to talk about virtues. And again, this is not just for church workers. It really is for anyone thinking about their own workplace or family or life. These are all virtues that are universally applicable. But I just want to talk about prayer briefly because, you and I have talked about this many times, the importance of one's prayer life, especially when you work in the church, because when you work in the church, my experience is there's a temptation to substitute your own relationship with God and your own life of prayer with your religious work. You're doing things for God all day. So I kind of just set aside my own. So just where does the role of, your own prayer in your ministry and life now that you work in the church?
Well, you're right. I mean, I was just like when I said, the church is just like across the parking lot here. I have to make an effort to make sure to take time in prayer, to go to adoration, just to pray, because I went on a retreat after Christmas. I went up to north of Atlanta, to tell you, a Jesuit retreat center at the Ignatius House. It was really beautiful retreat. It was like doing the examen for the whole year. And it was such a grace-filled opportunity to be in silence. And they had these beautiful hiking trails. And it was, relaxation, but also just deep prayer for 3 days. And I've been on silent retreats where people don't do a very good job being silent, but this group was just all in. It was really a beautiful thing. So I enjoyed that so much. And I think doing things like a retreat to nurture your prayer life is important. Spiritual direction. Actually, at my retreat, I was praying in front of this little tabernacle that they had in this sweet little chapel. And I said, Jesus, you just have to talk clearly to me because I'm a little slow sometimes. But I had a dream that night about my spiritual director. I went, oh, yeah, I need to go talk to her. So I've tried to get back into that. And also I've been doing a Lord Teach Me to Pray group here. And I just started that because I realized I do need to consciously do things. It's not just because I'm around the church doesn't make me a prayerful person. I need to commit to some things.
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I would say the same thing, retreats, spiritual direction, and then just a commitment to prayer every day. The last thing I want to talk about is you using this. So just maybe some thoughts on that, what you've seen or heard, or how you might recommend it be used.
The book, well, yeah, I think for staffs to use it would be a wonderful thing, really, just to go through the chapters and talk about your own experiences and what virtues you've had to use, or how you struggle with some of them. Like, how do you struggle with patience or prudence in some situations where you find it difficult, because there are difficult situations. But if a staff could use it, or if you're not even in a church, it doesn't, like you said, it's about virtues. It's about growing in holiness in any kind of office or family situation, to read it together with even a couple of friends and use it in that sense. Actually, I was talking about my retreat. I emailed my friend, the bishop in Atlanta. I said, I think it would be great to do a retreat on this book, and I will come lead it. So we'll see. I don't know if that will go anywhere, but to do it as either just a small staff, a small group, or, if a diocese wanted to have different, like a retreat or day retreat or something, we can just talk like you and I did, just about the laity and parish staffs, because it's a hard and sometimes not always, not a thankless job, but there's not always a lot of affirmation going around that I think just because everyone is so busy. I told my friend Kelly Serio, who I work with, who she said, we talked before Christmas, we were going to create something called an affirmation doll. And so if you're having a bad day, just pull out this little doll and someone says, you're doing a great job. But hopefully this, hello, you're doing a great job. But this book could be a way of affirming people too, because you're not alone. Anytime you're going through a difficult time, whatever it is, just to know you're not alone in that situation, I think gives people comfort. So all these things I talk about in my book, and it doesn't matter what the socioeconomic situation of a certain parish is, it's all the same. There's difficult situations. You work long hours, and you have, a lot to balance, a lot to juggle, because the staffs aren't large in a parish. We actually have a pretty large staff, but not every parish does. Some people have one person. So if you're by yourself, just find a friend. And I know I told you I've tried to start a blog, and I haven't been good at that, but I think I might be better at Facebook. But I would like to try to resurrect some of my ways to get this book in front of people. I've mailed it out to some dioceses, but to really invite people, encourage them to share it also with your pastor or church, and see if it can be used. And it doesn't have to be a Catholic church either. It's, the virtues are the
That's
virtues,
right.
whatever you are.
That's right.
Yeah.
No, and it's on Amazon, by the way. So you just go into Amazon and type in Karen Baker Parish or Karen Baker, any of the title there.
Karen Baker, Faith, Hope, and a Sense of Humor.
Yes, Faith, exactly. It will come up.
Yeah. You can also buy it from our Sunday Visitor.
What's that?
And you can also buy it from our Sunday Visitor. They have it on their website.
Of course, that's important to say that.
Yeah.
And the last thing I'll say is in my experience of using the book, or in anything like that, when you do it as a staff, that, you're a staff working together, you tend to be pragmatic and focused on what's necessary to be done. And, you don't talk about things any deeper than the surface. And so those moments give you a chance to talk a little bit deeper about what are we doing here and what are we doing together? What is the distinctive of being people of faith? Why should it look different? And this is a very practical way of thinking of that. So, well, Karen, it's been a tremendous pleasure to speak with you.
Well,
just always a joy to speak with you and get to share with people your own joy, the kind of beauty of your personality and your gifts, which I wanted to give others a chance to get a sense of, and hopefully to make use of this book.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you being my supporter, Tom.
Absolutely. I'm happy.
It's been a pleasure.
Why don't we end together? I'll just lead us in a Hail Mary. And since we have a delay in time, maybe here, I'll just lead it and you can just listen to me. Okay. In the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. And we ask the Mother of God to intercede for all of us who have heard this show, that we all might thrive in the virtues and be clothed with Christ. As we pray, Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. All right, Karen, till next time, God bless you.
Thank you. God bless you. Thank you very much.
Thanks all for joining us for another episode of Sharing the Faith. We look forward to seeing you again in 2 weeks for another conversation with another guest that I'll be having. So God bless you, and thanks for joining me.
Thank you for tuning in today to the Sharing the Faith podcast. If you would like to learn more about the podcast, visit ptdiocese.org/sharingthefaith. If you listen to the audio version through an app such as Apple Podcast, Spotify, or iHeartRadio, be sure to rate, review, and comment. If you watched on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe or leave a comment on the episode. Thank you for listening.